So our journey continued. We left the yacht in Sydney, but we arrived back to take it from Sydney to Eden. First we had to get into Sydney, and this is how we arrived.
I'll let you know when the junkies line up.
Junkies coming, man.
Close, junkies.
Yeah, we've got junkies, ice heads, not this car, the next one over.
Yeah, there we go.
They'll lose their shit when they see me.
What is on?
After the mild entertainment, we ended up getting back to the yacht, leaving Manly and travelling back towards Eden.
What? Why aren't I doing that? I'm missing out. Oh, fuck.
They say something this morning, we know down, I'm fucking on the highway, I'm ice, mate, I fucking need some.
Some of the conditions were idyllic. We had beautiful mornings, but we're always tired. And there was not a day when we weren't tired, but I guess that's sailing.
Still alive. Dave's doing a double hander. Tickle, tickle. No tugging here, mate.
We did find time to get some fishing in, and Steve did an awesome job, although there was not much on the line. Later in the day we did find something.
Hungry fella. He had a crack. Woo! Howdy goes.
Give me a kiss.
Fucking bang, God.
Sometimes a bit of an issue of being a left-hander is you got to modify right-handed things to make use of the equipment in a more efficient manner. Here we are just modifying a right-handed spear gun to suit the left-hander. It took a little bit of chiseling, but it actually, at the end of the day, it did feel quite nice to hold in the left hand, and has shot fish since, so that's usually a good sign. Then of course we had to test the equipment. We found a perfect idyllic spot once we arrived in Eden before some major storms came, but on this occasion it was quite calm. Little did we know it was a bit of a haven for sharks, but at the time we didn't care too much, and we did happen to find some nice fish to shoot at, and yeah, couldn't have asked for better conditions actually. Upon leaving Eden, we made a trip back into Western Port, which is where we were hoping to end up. But along the way, we had to battle through some issues. It's never a good thing when you see that amount of water down in the engine bay, but like buying anything new or used, you got to find where the weaknesses are. This leak actually came from a water pump, a freshwater pump, where the hose was barbed off the pump itself, but it had a spacer, bit of plastic that's made into a spacer, sleeved over it, and then the actual exhaust or exit hose clamped over the top. Needless to say, obviously it popped off, and we did rectify this in later days.
Need to turn the water pump on. Shower.
At the time, I wasn't sure where the water was coming from, so we gave it a bit of a freshwater bath just around the electronics in the engine, just to make sure it wasn't getting corrosion. It was more of a preventative thing, but you never know, it could prevent some further issues later on in the track. Luckily, most issues don't happen at the same time as we're about to see. Here we were hit by 40 knot squalls, if not more, in Bass Strait. So we were expecting them, and they were only going to last an hour, according to all the predictions. But it kept us on our toes, and believe it or not, we were actually travelling backwards quite a few times when we looked at our GPS plot. And so even at full throttle, 21 horsepower was barely enough to keep this trimaran moving forward at times. But we did end up back in Western Port, and this is our favourite ground, where we can find many amazing animals underwater. Here we were fishing for some crays, and yeah, it's quite a nice spot if you manage to ever get down to Western Port. Don't mind the sharks, there's not many of them out there. Weedy sea dragons, plenty of them around in here. Coming up next, we'll show you the sights of Western Port and northern Bass Strait.